We're on the prairies in Saskatchewan. It's very flat and I love it.
South Prairie, so it's really fairly flat, although certainly not as flat as you think at first.
It's like it just goes from right to land, and then you can pretty much like walk into the sky.
It was described you go onto this unpaved road for 15K, and as you're driving, you're getting into just the nature, just flat and nobody around. It's pretty cool.
Back of beyond, middle of nowhere. I mean, it's really, really isolated out here, but that's part of what the appeal for me is, and I think a lot of the other people that come out here is it's just so different.
The Old Man on His Back is a 13,000 acre ranch in southwest Saskatchewan. It highlights native grassland. It's a really great example of mixed grass prairie that's left in southern Canada. The Nature Conservancy of Canada is a not-for-profit land trust involved in the conservation of lands in Canada. So yeah, it's been 20 years of conservation on the property now. This weekend is our annual conservation volunteer event at the property. It's held the second week of August every year. And yeah, it's a great way for the public to get out and really help us with some stewardship on the property, as well as just a great place to meet people from across the country. It's not just within Saskatchewan where our volunteers come from. We actually have some from BC, some from Ontario. So yeah, it's a really neat place to meet people you wouldn't meet anywhere else, as well as accomplishing some really important stewardship on the property.
Well, it's just the satisfaction of contributing a little bit of citizen science and a little bit of sweat equity into something that's larger than yourself.
The conservation weekend, the appeal of that is that you get to meet people from different areas of Canada, even a couple here from Ontario this year, and from very different walks of life, and yet we all have the shared interest in nature and conservation.
I'm Jean Kendall from Brantford, Ontario, and I came to Saskatchewan with my 10-year-old granddaughter, Tanea Kring.
We were tapping fence posts with cans, and we were putting markers on the fence so that the birds didn't fly and get caught.
So we're sticking these fence clips on the fence to make them more visible for sage grouse. And so they're just made out of vinyl, and one side's reflective and the other side's not, so we're alternating reflective, non-reflective, and we're putting them on the top and the middle wire.
If staff was to do that, it would take quite a bit of time, but when you get 20 or 30 volunteers out there, yeah, it can go really quickly to get those kind of jobs done. The property was purchased by the Nature Conservancy of Canada in 1996 from Pete and Sharon Butella. We have visitors come that actually really only come because of Sharon's writings. It's really neat for people to come out here and experience what she experienced while she was writing Perfection of the Morning. I know she really spoke of how isolating it was feeling. I think when people visit out here, they can definitely feel that when it's so peaceful and calm.
I think my love of Saskatchewan really developed when I read Sharon Butella's books. That's really what started me off, and I had to see it, because she described in her Perfection of the Morning, she described the landscape, and I wanted to see it. And that was long before NCC owned this property.
It's still prairie, and it's what you read about in things like Wallace Stanger's Wolf Willow and some of the writings of Sharon Butella, which is what got me intrigued by this property, and that's what put it on my bucket list in the first place.
So year-round, we have a herd of genetically pure Plains bison here on the property. Right now, we're sitting at around 75 adults and 4 breeding bulls, and we're getting between kind of 55 and 60 calves each year. Their summer field is probably around 6,000 acres, so it's a pretty big field. And then during the summer, they're in a little bit smaller field, about 3,000 acres. So when you're thinking of the property of 13,000 acres, the bison run on about 9,000 of that. So what makes the Old Man on His Back so unique is that it is a working ranch. This land highlights how conservation and agriculture can go hand in hand. We use cattle here as well as bison to graze the landscape. Yeah, it really highlights the positive relationship that agriculture can have on conservation lands.
Well, one of the things is it's so large, and the larger the property is, the better the chance is of preserving the natural biodiversity. Animals in particular, and birds, they need large territories to survive. Go back in history a little bit, we see situations where we took the millions of bison herds, for instance, for granted, and the next thing we know, historically, we turned around and they were gone. There was only a few small remnant herds left. Fortunately, there's quite a few people around that are becoming more and more conscious of that, and so we're doing our best just to preserve some of these things.
It's nice to hear the sounds of nature at night, and there was a telescope that was set up last night, and we saw Saturn, which I'd never seen that way before, so that was very cool for me.
We saw the Big Dipper last night. It actually has, in the middle star of the handle, it has 2 stars.
The absence of external light sources is a major benefit, and the fact that you're a long way from any major sources of light, like cities, it also helps.
With so much grassland being converted to agricultural land in Canada, I really do think that it's a unique property. It really is a treasure. It's a beautiful property that I don't think pictures do it justice.
It's really, really isolated out here, but that's part of what the appeal for me is, and I think a lot of the other people that come out here it's just so different and so remote.
If you just like to sit inside and do nothing or play video games, then it probably wouldn't be a very good idea.
It opened up a whole new world for people to experience this nature. Now my 10-year-old granddaughter knows about it, and this wouldn't have happened if it hadn't have been an NCC property. It wouldn't have been here for us. Just experiencing this with her was like an eye-opener. When you travel with a child, you get a different experience than if you're traveling with yourself or an adult. It was worth the trip. It was worth the expense of the trip.
You have to get out of your comfort zone to get out here because there's not a lot of amenities close by, and a lot of people don't like driving on gravel roads. But if you do, and you get to enjoy nature and you get to slow down and breathe and interact with people from different walks of life. Just a very enriching experience, I think.
If you have program ideas that you'd like to see on Max TV Local On Demand, write us at max.local@sasktel.com.